So we have a fairly packed agenda, but essentially what we'll do today is we'll walk through the implementation of the here data into iPeMS. I'll walk you through an introductory piece for the beginning, and then I'll get into different elements of the tool that you have access to, talk about individual pieces. Let's be collaborative in the discussion today like you were with Terry. Ask questions as we go along, and if it's something that I'm going to cover later, we can park it and get that at a different point. So my name again is Scott Perley. So I've been with Iteris since 2012. Prior to that, I worked for what became here under Navtech Nokia. The full history is UDOT acquired the freeway PeMS in 2008. So I've been working with Utah since then. And ran the system for Utah under traffic.com, and then moved over to Iteris and wound up being in charge here. So I can't get a review. So I've worked with a number of you for a long time, and appreciate the work that you've done here with us. So what we're working with today is data is everywhere. There's lots of data. Here's processing in billions of probes from GPS readings all of the time globally, has built an infrastructure that lets data be processed into different elements. And data is changing over time, and so it's proliferating into different forms and functions. And it gets bigger and bigger. And so Terry gave you some examples of different types of data sets that are coming. Walt's questions were this, is it coming directly from the vehicle? What's happening? There are sort of paths to get there. One version of the path is to extract speeds, put it on a link, provide you data on that link, and then aggregate that up into performance measures. Another way is to pull in incident data and then start to get more detailed incident data that you're getting from different types of vehicles. And so what we'll go through today is both the link speed and travel time data that's provided by here, and then some incidents that are being provided. We chose to connect to here's incident feed as opposed to going to the center-to-center feed to grab Utah's directly, so that we could benefit from that type of data set that would be coming in, projecting that here would integrate the UDOT data as well. So we get kind of the best of both worlds. In its current form, it's more limited than the UDOT's incident coverage, because here is slightly more conservative in terms of the things that they're reporting. But once that's integrated, you'll kind of get the best of both worlds, and I'll talk a little bit about what that means today and what it looks like in the future. So iPeMS, so I'll use two terms interchangeably, PeMS and iPeMS. The software was originally called PeMS, built out of Berkeley as a tool that primarily processed in sensor data for the state of California. Iteris acquired Berkeley Transportation Systems in 2011 and stuck an I in front of it because eyes are cool. And it also happens to be the first letter of Iteris, and so iPeMS is the term that is used today. I interchangeably use PeMS and iPeMS all the time. We call the detector-based system freeway PeMS, and so I'll use that as a term, meaning that it's using freeway detectors primarily to process in. But essentially, we build tools that help make sense of different data sets. So the question is, what do you do with all this data? How do you start? And so iPeMS is the tool that processes in the here travel time and traffic speed data to figure out how to analyze that and give you tools to help you do your jobs. So kind of on the difficulty to applicability solutions chart, the iPeMS or PeMS features kind of fit in these two buckets of what happened and then why did it happen. So there's some elements of different data sets that tell you different kind of components of that. The kind of the Valhalla is up here in the predictive and prescriptive pieces, which you start to get into a little bit more in terms of using the tools yourself to try to figure out how to predict. So some of the questions that we had around how do I predict what the queues will be for a construction work zone, or what should we do to make something happen, so studying what happened in a queue for a work zone and figuring out how that worked and comparing that over time. So that's some of the things that you do as an analyst are up here in this upper corner, and along as software gets more sophisticated and data gets more sophisticated, we start to be able to automate a little bit more of these elements to help you with those features as well. We also run signal performance measures. You all invented it here in Utah. We also do signal performance measurements, so that's in there as one of the kind of bullet elements as well. So what we're going to go through today is training I trust that everybody who said they're not coming tomorrow will still come tomorrow, because tomorrow's sessions will also be interesting. That will be on the freeway detector data. And the book is twice as big, so it's doubly interesting. So we're going to go through today kind of training on the different elements. And the objectives of today's session are to walk you through the tool. How do you navigate? Where do I get to this report? What can I do with the reports that are there? What does the data mean to me? Interpret some of the values that are associated with the data sets. Give you some hands-on experience. So I see many of you brought your laptops, so we're going to have you log in and kind of follow along. And then give you these sets of tools in terms of the booklet that you have, the video that's being recorded, to allow you to analyze data for future use. So kind of in a nutshell, what is iPeMS and what are we doing with the third-party data sets? This, kind of the upper box is what happens when we take the data that here's producing, process that in every minute, we aggregate it up into different time periods, so 5-minute, 15-minute, hourly, daily values. We calculate a number of different performance measures. So that ranges from average speeds to travel times to travel time index, planning time index, buffer time index. So we're doing performance measurement calculations on the data sets themselves to give you tools to work with. In the iPeMS deployment for Utah, we also processed in a volume profile. So the Texas Transportation Institute has built a way to take the iPeMS data, process that into 15-minute volume profiles across the course of the days. And we pull that volume profile in, and then we can do volume-based measures with the speed data. And so we're doing vehicle hours of delay and other metrics that are volume-based delay measures, using a proxy for volume, not the measured volume like you're getting in the freeway PEMS system, but a proxied version of that volume data that you can leverage statewide on all the links using the iPeMS profiles. And then we visualize that data in a number of different forms. So the lower section of the slide goes into reports and charts. We have heat maps, which are contours that you can look at over a course of a month or for a particular day to see where your bottlenecks are, how they occur. We have a feature that's a map animation, so we let you go back to any point in time and look at what happened in the past and animate that, so you can play through the map to see what the traffic looked like for particular events or just to analyze for recurrent congestion or special events. We let you save those animations. We call them favorites. And then we let you spit data out into multiple formats because people like to play with data in other ways. So we have APIs that are programmatically available. We have a bulk downloader features that let you pull all of the data into some other tool if you wanted to. Individual report exports into Excel or PDFs or text files. So we recognize that some people like to play with data outside of the tool. We like playing with data inside the tool, but we support sort of both audiences. In terms of the types of functions that we do as a company, so what we'll do tomorrow is the freeway module and the ABC module. So we pull in the classification data as well. That's a relatively new feature into the freeway PEMS. What we'll do mostly today is the third-party module. We do a small component of this. We're pulling in the incident data. We have a bunch of reports that let you analyze incidents over time and space that aren't in the system today, but you have at least the startings of that, and so I put the UDOT flag there. And then we have other types of features that we have or other sorts of tools that you don't have, but that are possible features that you could eventually add. So before I get into the tool itself, I'm going to describe a little bit. I think I can go fairly quickly through these slides because Terry gave a nice overview. All right, so the type of data that's available in iPeMS. So it's speed data collected from the vehicle probe. So mostly GPS, mostly cellular, some connected vehicle data starting to populate in, data that's aggregated up to link speeds that we process in as a big giant file every minute. And then we process that into the tool and then aggregate it up in iPeMS for you. So it's a complete set of data for all the TMC encoded roadways. So any roadway link that has a TMC ID associated with it here and TomTom are part of a consortium that controls the IDs associated with those links. And so they add IDs occasionally, and we have a process that's built to process in new maps as they get updated. And so you'll see, I'll walk through what that means to you in terms of what you see in the network, but we try to make that both transparent and non-apparent to you. So you just have to care about where do I want to analyze my traffic, and we handle the complicated behind the scenes map matching elements up. So one of the benefits working with the mapping companies, they have a really nice map, and so we've built processes with them to update that in automated ways, and so that lets us keep up to date with the traffic changes, with the ID changes in a way that's fairly nice. Terry described the DLR. I always called it dynamic linear referencing, and now I learned something today. It's not called dynamic location referencing. So there's observed data when that is available. So you'll see that the map has colors on it on most places, and you'll see these little gray lines. Those are the DLR segments that are currently not getting any speed. When they do get speed, they get color coded with whatever the speed is. But you can click on any link and see data over time for whatever time period that you want to analyze. And so Utah thought it would be beneficial to acquire data anywhere so that they could see what that did and what that looked like and analyze that over time. We also have a history of providing data quality measurements. You can't do quite as much with the third-party data because you're just getting a speed on a link, but we do pull in the confidence score, then we aggregate that over time and show you some metrics associated with it. And so to the questions of how do I know when you have more probes, there's a value that tells you along the spectrum how dense and how current is the data set. And so it ranges from sort of a model, which is a historical number, to it's all there all the time, super present, which is on the freeways all the time. And so you can use that confidence score to judge for yourself, is this more of a historical model, or is it more real time? And it's kind of a spectrum of the two. And the higher the score, the more data, more currency there is to it. So how else does it differ from sensor data? So you've have a number of wavetronics detectors, about 3,500 of them in the state. You're measuring lane-based speeds in 1,800-ish locations. The difference between this data set and that data set is you're getting a sample of vehicles. So not every probe gets processed by here. Not everybody has their cell phone on providing data through an application that's providing data to anybody, let alone providing data to here for us to pull in and process. So you're getting some sample of vehicles, and the confidence score tells you what that means. The information that we're currently processing in isn't provided by lane. Here does have some lane-based probes that they do provide out in some locations, so it is possible to get lane splits, for example. At some locations, it wasn't part of the work that we needed to do up front, but it is a feature that could be done later if it's something that was interesting to UDOT. It's provided on all roadways that are contracted for here, which in this case is the entire state. And then, so the translation is there's data in a lot more places. Not all of it is as dense as other data because there's a lot fewer cars in some portions of your roadways than there are on others. But when congestion occurs, probes tend to find it pretty well, and so you start to get where congestion happens, you'll get some decent results, and you have data all over the place, and you can tell what that means by looking at some of the metrics. I use interchangeably PeMS and iPeMS, and sort of terms I use different terms for the data itself. I often will call it third-party data, meaning that's a data provided from a third party that's not the state into our application. Probe data, meaning the actual readings that you're getting that are aggregated up, and here data, meaning the provider of the data. So I will interchangeably use those terms throughout the day, but they all mean the same thing. Some other terminology that I think is useful before we start. So links, Terry showed you those small offsets and some of the links. There were 17 links in her 1.48 mile route, or 1.48 mile TMC. So we process all those tiny links into the system. You can click on a portion of the map and it'll say it's less than a tenth of a mile in length. That's the data that was provided for that particular section of roadway. Route is an aggregation of all those links into some path that you wanted to create. So Grant and Kelly have been super busy adding many routes into the system, and so there's a bunch of interesting routes that have been created, and they're paths that UDOT wanted to put in to analyze specific routes. But you can make your own for the roads that you care about. You can look at and see what other people have done, so people share routes with each other. It sort of defaults to share. And then we process data in real time, meaning we're processing data from that per minute feed every minute, processing it in, and then archiving that into historical archives. So the historical data means for every 5 minutes, 15 minutes, hourly, day, over the course of many days, what does the data look like for a particular link or route in the network. And then the report is simply a feature, a graph, a table, a file that we produce that contains performance measurement data.